People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, guys, we're back. And this week we have a Judge Mentalist. I've known this guy for several years. After I Fool Us, he actually interviewed me for his podcast, his networking group. I wasn't sure if it's a podcast, but become good friends. He asked to be on. He said, "Hey, what do I have to do to get on your podcast?" I said, "Ask and you shall receive." So everybody, it's Judge Mentalist. What's up, buddy?
What's going on? How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm doing really good. Yeah. How about yourself?
Man, everywhere, all at once. Obviously lots and lots of shows, and I've got a exciting and stacked lineup for the rest of basically the rest of 2025. And I think since we last talked, I have almost full time been doing stage hypnosis. So I've kind of, I will still occasionally do mentalism shows and take those wherever. In fact, this upcoming weekend, I got booked by a hypnosis conference to perform a mentalism show. Do the math on all of that.
That's funny.
They wanted something a little bit different, and this is a conference that I had spoken at in the past, and they were like, "Hey, can you do this for us?" I'm like, "If you must," because I got into stage hypnosis a number of years ago, and it just, to me, and all performance types are kind of suited to certain personalities and others, but I absolutely fell in love with this and the ability to make individuals and volunteers on my stage become the stars of the show, because I'm not that me type of personality most of the time. So being able to kind of facilitate these dreams for people and have them become the stars while I'm still, pulling the levers is a ton of fun and jives very, very well with my personality type. So it was a little bit of a, wait, you want me to do what type of situation? But yeah, it's fun because I don't know that I've done a mentalism show in at least, I don't know, probably a year and a half, 2 years. So that's going to be a fun adventure. Dusting off some old stuff and trying to make some very, very personal stuff to this group, because I know a lot of the people that are going to be there, and should be good.
Wow. So what was your start in magic, mentalism, hypnosis? What came first?
It started with magic and some card stuff and strolling. And
what age is this?
To which I was actually performing for people. This was probably 9 or 10 years ago. So I was an adult, and it was, strolling around at bars, not getting paid to do gigs, not trying to get paid to do gigs, just having a good time and blowing people's minds and doing fun stuff like that. And then I linked up with this guy that at the time was running a community theater, and I suggested to him that, hey, perhaps with some of the gaps that you have in your schedule, because they do theater productions. So, they do a couple-week run, and then it's downtime while they reset and do the next production. I'm like, in these gaps, you should really be booking, touring magic performers and mind readers and stuff like that. And the response that I got to it was, great idea. You should book them. So I started this idea called Elkton Magic, and we ran that for about, I don't know, from late 2021 up until last year. And then it just got to the point, we actually had a couple of shows this year early. It just got to the point where the audiences and everything were so inconsistent that it was very, very difficult to maintain. So we scrapped that. But the first time that I did a stage show was when that concept started. The first person that we booked was Matt Donnelly, the Mind Noodler. And in booking him, he was like, "Hey, do you want to open for me?" And I guess that's where I learned that I had the mindset of an entertainer, because without even thinking, I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I didn't have a show. I had never performed on stage. I had only done close-up strolling stuff for people. And it was that say yes and figure it out. And I did, and it was a ton of fun, and I caught the bug. And over a period of time, and working with people like Larry Haas and Jeff McBride, kind of developed this character and personality that is Judge Mentalist. Early on, I tried to avoid, my career and day job is being an attorney. I tried to keep those worlds separate until they were like, no, that's a superpower, lean into it. And that's where Judge Mentalist was born. And I started doing shows under that name for a number of years and still do, because even though 99% of what I do performance wise is stage hypnosis, many consider hypnosis to be an offshoot of mentalism. And I have invested a ton of time and effort and energy into the branding that is Judge Mentalist, not to mention money. So until I find some, hey, this is going to be the new character, it's Judge Mentalist.
Let's say yes and figure it out later. I've done that several times in my career. I'll admit it now. I wouldn't admit it at the time. But for me, it's like, yeah, we did it. It worked. We did it. We did it, Natalie.
Mm-hmm.
But to hear somebody else say it, it's like, ooh, that's scary. Oh, you really did that? Yeah, you really did that? Because I don't know your head. I don't know.
Right.
Oh, that's so. You don't know anything, and you're headlining for somebody.
You're not prepared.
Right. But
look, I did have probably 2 months to put something together. Yeah. And, but again, jumping from literally going, person to person, doing 1 or 2 tricks to, hey, now you're going to do a 15-minute set. And not just, hey, you're going to do a 15-minute set, but you're launching this concept that you hope people love. And you, not the headliner, not Matt Donnelly, you, the dummy who said, yes, I'm going to do this, or maybe the genius who said, yes, I'm going to do this, who knows, we're not there yet, in the timeline, are going to be the first impression that these folks get of this concept. I am the crash and burn test dummy, or at least I was several years ago, and it went well. And like I said, I caught the bug and loved it, and really just haven't turned back from doing stage shows since. I don't know that I've done much of anything with a deck of cards since then. And it's been a fun adventure that's taken me all over this country. I've done, and specifically with hypnosis, I've done fairs and festivals and fundraiser shows all over the country. Those are my favorite, doing fundraiser shows a lot of times, either for nonprofits or my main target are high schools and groups at high schools, because when you're fundraising, costs are super important. So I offer these schools and nonprofits a risk-free pricing model where I'm getting a percentage of their ticket sales. I have a team that's selling sponsorships for them, so they're paying me no money up front. It's all based on the ticket sales. My percentage actually decreases the more tickets they sell. So they're incentivized to really fill the room. And with the school groups, most of them have either a big cafeteria, an auditorium, a gymnasium, someplace that without going out and renting a hall for $1,000 or $2,000, that's built in too. So those are kind of the main wheelhouse. And then I love traveling. I love seeing new places. You guys travel a ton, have the RV. So I am constantly on the lookout for fringe festivals that are in unique and exciting places that also fit into my schedule. So that's kind of my secondary where I like to perform, either those fundraiser shows or fringe festivals that take me unique places.
All right, so before we get to your fringe festivals and the unique place you have coming up,
yes,
Elkton Magic, it's not done. It's not closed. It's still in the back burner. Because I think in my head, Elkton was just a small area, right? So you're getting those people that love magic. They're not going to come out 4 times a month. So then you got, I don't know, 5,000 people, and you have to pick from those people. Whereas Vegas, you got people coming through. You don't have the tourists. You don't have people once a month.
Yeah, we were doing shows. The goal was once a month, understanding that we were avoiding certain times like holidays and otherwise. Okay. So we were doing For the bulk of the run, we were doing shows about 10 shows a year.
Okay, I thought you were doing it weekly. Okay.
No, I knew from the beginning that doing that was not going to necessarily be for this market because, as you said, we're a small town. We are equidistant between Baltimore and Philadelphia, and we had relationships, still have relationships with theaters in Philadelphia and Baltimore and DC we would try to work in that, hey, if somebody's coming to one of those and working their way through, that we would be an extra spot on that tour. But the logistics of that are not as easy as it sounds. It sounds like a great idea. It should work. I mean, it would be fantastic if there were a real kind of just grouping of theaters in some. I mean, this is, I'm talking about Dream World of, they're all an hour or two apart from each other, and they get together and they review people's material together and say, hey, we want to book Wes Iseli. Let's start him in Maine and work him down the coast, and boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. That would be a dream world. I think for both the performers and the venues, but
they don't even talk.
Right. It's there are ways that it could be a lot easier for folks, but again, it's also, all of these theaters are very, very different. The setups, the layouts, they're not all suitable for close-up magicians. They're not all suitable for big stage magicians, whatever it is. So there's obviously challenges in that. Some of them do shows weekly, some of them do shows monthly. So, that inconsistency certainly makes for, and not to mention personalities, but just the logistics of how those theaters set up make it not as easy as one would hope that, hey, this is perfect, do this. Maybe one day in a dream world, but
yeah. What AI will take over and help everybody schedule everything, and they'll figure it out. Hey, this dude's here. Why don't we ask him if he wants to come here? They'll figure it out because nobody else is going to talk.
Man, we were talking about the silly stuff that we've seen that has been obviously generated and put out there by AI before we started. And it just, the one I was telling you that really stood out to me was a post about some musician. I don't remember who it was, but the post was that they would be performing a halftime show at Sunday night's Ravens-Bills game in Baltimore. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, that game's in Buffalo. This performer is going to do a halftime show for an empty stadium? Okay, AI. Yeah. You're taking over the world when? Because it ain't today. That's for sure. There are some valuable benefits to it, and boy, oh boy, there's some Swiss cheese holes in it too.
Yeah. Hold on a second. I didn't say that.
You're funny.
He said it. I didn't say it.
That's funny.
All right. So we talked about your start. You said yes, and then you just figured it out. But you did some card magic. You did some other stuff. What are some other venues you did before you opened for Matt Donnelly?
Well, he was the first time that I was doing stage stuff. So
that was the first time ever on stage performing instead of just playing at a bar.
Correct.
Just around at a bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa, my gosh.
That was the first time that me as a performer in the magic and mystery arts was listed on something scheduled, because I didn't book gigs to go do magic tricks at bars. I just did it for fun. So I would just show up places and have, 4 or 5 things loaded on me and just do it in the moment and not do it for a little while. And then, okay, here's somebody new. And, I would just come up with crazy stuff on the fly and be like, oh, that person walked to the bathroom and left their wallet there. So I'm going to slide a card in there, and then they're going to pick a card, and then that card's going to disappear. And now all of a sudden it's in the wallet, and, just these aren't things I learned from books. They were just like, hey, let's do this right now because the opportunity has presented itself. But none of that was scheduled. None of that was planned. That was just, hey, let's go out and have a good time. So yeah, it was November 2021. It was the first time that I did anything formally on stage that was, scheduled and people bought tickets for it. Now, let's be real. They weren't buying tickets to see me. They were buying tickets to see Matt. And rightfully so. But we ran, like I said, we ran those shows, probably 10 shows a year up and until the last show that we did was this April. And it just kind of got to the breaking point of, just with the consistency of audiences, and then the theater that we were working with ended up, the building they were in got bought. They were in limbo for a little while. We were working with another venue temporarily. They opened up a new place, and then they ended up folding because of some weird stuff with the landlord and everything. So the main place that we were doing these shows disappeared. So that plus the inconsistent audiences were all right, we're just gonna hit the brakes on this for a little while. So we did that, and I think at some point in time, a lot of things that exist in this world are very cyclical. So they go away for a little while and then they come back. So, I'm not saying it's never going to come back. I would definitely love it to have some other interested folks that say, hey, we love it to be part of bringing that back so that I'm not bearing all the responsibility of everything. Because another element to that was, as I started doing more and more of these shows and traveling all over the place, makes it difficult for me to be here selling tickets to a show and be on the road doing my shows. I did a week-long run at a county fair in the absolute middle of nowhere, Oregon last year, where when you're in the middle, and I know that with you guys moving around, there are some spots in this country where I don't care who you're praying to, you're not getting a cell reception. You're not answering emails. You're not getting phone calls. It is the world of good luck out there. So even in the tech world, with all of the things that we have, where we're, a couple hundred miles apart doing this right now, and people are going to see it after we've done it. And here we are kind of running ourselves through a copy machine, however many times it gets viewed. When you don't have all of the things, you can't connect the way that you normally would be able to. So those kind of things made things incredibly challenging. And it was that coalescence of just all of the wrong things falling into place to be like, okay, it's time to hit the brakes. We'll revisit this, and, we'll maintain all the assets, the elktonmagic.com and everything's still there. People still contact us about booking, and they might want somebody for like a private event or a company party. So we kind of try to figure out what they want and then roll through the Rolodex of who might be a good fit for this show or that show or whatever opportunity. So it still serves a purpose to some extent, but we're not doing, the shows on a monthly basis anymore for the foreseeable future.
Well, that's how I first found out about you. So that's why I'm bummed that it's got the brakes on. So please bring it back, because I always got the posts. I always saw who was coming through, and I want to go visit. I want to go see it. I want to go.
You're also, you're close enough that inevitably there'll be some events that, as we cycle through the Rolodex, I try to keep it local at first and then kind of circle out from there and circle out from there. And, they'll probably end up being some of those contacts that fall into your lap at some point in time, but depending on your schedule, because obviously you guys are quite busy and keep it well filled. So
that's all her. But I didn't realize you were doing everything. So I'm going over here listing all the things. You got to sell the tickets. You got to get the parking. You got to answer questions about directions, and you got to answer this, and you got to do that, and you got to figure out the money. You got to do all the promotion. Yeah. And just the promotion alone needs a person in itself. So yeah, that's a lot. And then maybe have a week where nobody shows up, or almost nobody.
And it's difficult because there's only so much that you really know and can kind of piece together. And you could be trying to plan an event, and all of a sudden there's some huge thing that's rolling through town that you had no idea about. And I've seen it's happened to some of our events. I've seen other folks that do entertainment type of stuff. Like I've got a colleague in this town that does real steel, real armor, like night fights. And they had one a couple years ago that there was just some unforeseeable competing event that just rolled into it's like kind of like when you're in Vegas and you have a small show and Cirque du Soleil is spending millions of dollars a week advertising all of their stuff. Like that's what you're fighting with, you know. So somebody wants to roll in and spend big dollars, you know, the kind of dollars that if you sold every ticket to every show you ever did, you couldn't spend that money and break even, just washing you out. And you know, sometimes that kind of stuff happens, and it makes things really, really tough. And you know, it just try to do the best that you can to bring something spectacular and amazing to an audience. And there we had some really, really great shows, and we just over time it just seemed to at least for the time being run its course. So
Yeah. So, all right. So, I'm trying to get your timeline before we get to your big trip you have coming up. So, you headline for Matt, then what? Because at some point you end up in Iowa. So, how do you start booking these county fairs across the country?
The one that I did was linked up through another entertainer, and so a lot of that's it. A lot of it's networking. A lot of it's stuff like this. Um, they're in the hypnosis world. You know, some of the hot spots are county fairs, state fairs. They love to have, especially out in the West and the Midwest. They love to have those. Also, the you know, I do a lot of the outreach on the fundraiser shows I do. So I do the prospecting. I reach out to these schools. I offer them these opportunities. You guys do a lot of assembly shows for schools, right?
We do more the fundraiser. We don't
More the fundraiser?
going
Okay.
going into schools during the day. It's such a hassle. Yeah.
It's a lot of
So
tape for some reason.
it's a similar type of approach though. You're reaching out to a lot of the same people, and you understand that hey, it's going to take a couple calls because sometimes I'm not necessarily getting the right person that wants this thing that I have, and really staying on top of them. Another thing that's really popular, especially in the Midwest, are post-prom events. There's not a lot of them around here, but in the Midwest, they take kids from prom and basically do an all-nighter type of lock-in. That way
They
they're not out
they have,
there
we do them.
down there. Okay. Yeah, here in Maryland, there's some schools that do them, but it's not widespread. In the Midwest, it's weird to not have them. So they will take those kids from the prom into, you know, an auditorium or a gymnasium or whatever, and they have bounce houses and they have all sorts of food and caffeinated drinks and whatever other, you know, entertainers come in, and it's not just hypnotists, they have other people. And so it's like you're doing shows at like 11, 12 o'clock at night, and then you're hopping in a car and driving 2 hours and then doing one at 2 or 3 in the morning, and you're completely on fumes before you get back to wherever you are and wherever you're camping out that night, and rinse repeat and do another cycle of them the next night. So
Yeah, I'll do like 5 hours of close up, and then I'll do a stage show. So I'm there all night. I'm not jumping from place to place to place.
so
So
you got an all-nighter on deck for you too. So
yeah.
yeah, those, and then and a lot of those get booked through agents that are regional, and you know I've coordinated those with a conference that's in St. Louis that I often speak at. So it's a lot of us trying to line those things up. I mean, you understand the logistics of trying to be somewhere, and hey, if I'm here and then I have to be there, and there's this gap in between, how do we fill that gap? How do we make it worth our time? How do we get, you know, another gig or another opportunity out of this? And it might not be exactly what you always do, but it works and you make it work. So yeah, sometimes those things are linked together to conferences, and I don't know, it's a lot of fun. I love going all over the place. I'm a traveler, and you know, but again, it's also something that I tell people all the time. I say, look, there's plenty of work in your backyard, and if you're doing shows for high schools. There's and if you're targeting fundraiser shows, just think about the county you live in. How many high schools are in your county where you are right now?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Well, I don't even know. Do you know?
No,
I don't know.
not in our
We
town.
Depending
homeschool.
on the size of it, it could be
I
anywhere.
pass them, but I don't even look over. I just keep driving. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, bigger counties have like 20, 30 high schools in. Most of these high schools have anywhere between 10 and 20 different organizations, whether it's a marching band or a specific sports team, or, you know, I've raised money for the junior class because they're paying for a prom, or the sophomore class, or whatever. And I mean, you can keep your calendar pretty full and never not sleep in your own bed. You know, there are shows and opportunities for shows if you go out there and create them within an hour and a half, 2 hours of where you live, enough to keep even full-time people very, very busy.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But that's why I always tell everybody, you know, I'll have people on, I promote the heck out of them. You know, I love this guy. He's a great magician. Check out his website, check out his stuff. Why are you advertising other people? Because I'm not afraid of them. It doesn't do anything against me. There's enough work for everybody. The thing is, they don't go out and get it.
Yeah, I mean, there's more than enough work. And here's the thing, somebody's going to see this and they're going to be like, you know what? It'd really be great to have that kind of entertainer where I am. And you might not get hired for it, and I might not get hired for it because they might see this someplace halfway across the country, but somebody's getting work out of it. Somebody's phone's going to ring because we're having this conversation. It doesn't need to be us because somebody else somewhere else is having a conversation that's going to make one of our phones ring.
Yeah, yeah. So, how much are you doing the lawyer thing nowadays? Is it all magic now? Or mentalism, hypnosis? Sorry.
I mean, I'm still somewhat full-time as an attorney. I'm in my office basically. If I'm not on the road, I'm in my office normal hours. I'm not always doing lawyer stuff, but I'd say it's probably about 50-50 during the day when I'm here, and maybe 60-40. It really, there's an ebb and flow to it. Sometimes it's a lot busier than others. Sometimes there's a lot of stuff, but I've built a really, really strong team of staff and other attorneys, and my wife's an attorney, so it's it takes a team, it takes a village to make some of this stuff work, and that's very much the case here. But the show still goes on when I'm not here, because again,
is she the same type of lawyer you are? I told you my law knowledge is
yeah.
Yep.
So
yeah,
we all work together, do all the same stuff, keep it nice, and
so she can literally help you with your cases? Or is it just the law office's case?
It's the law office case. It's probably at this point fair to describe it the other way around, me helping her with her cases, but let's be real.
That's our business. I help her.
Exactly.
Yeah. She books them. She does everything. Those lulls in between, trying to fill them out, that's her. She does all the scheduling, all the figuring out to and fro. She's awesome. She is a rock star. Wives, you get a good one. Get a good
That's
one.
right.
All right. So I have a set of notes here about bullet points to talk about during this thing, which you so awesomely took care of me on. But it's got a Kickstarter launch, and I don't know anything about your Kickstarter. What's your Kickstarter?
So let's talk about the Fringe Festival first, because the Kickstarter is about the Fringe Festival. Starting October 31st, that's this year's Halloween, not the 13th. Wait, yeah. We didn't talk about that on the air. That was another AI thing that we were talking about. How
666 years since the last time Halloween fell on a Friday the 13th.
How is that possible?
Well,
exactly.
The lady from church, and I had 2 people mention it at MAES this week.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And just the fact that they're bringing it up and didn't just keep scrolling, like they read it and investigated it and went and checked their schedule.
I know, right?
Well, it doesn't look like it's on that day. It's on the 31st this year. So yeah, that the 31st into the first week of November, I am going to be doing an experimental hypnosis show, or a series of a run of experimental hypnosis shows at the Barcelona Fringe Festival. So I wanted it to be a a little bit more than me just going off and doing these shows, which is going to be it's going to be amazing, a lot of fun. I've never been to Spain before. I took 5 years of Spanish in high school. I don't know that I remember much of it, but we're going to find out. But the show that I'm doing is called the Carnival of Dreams. And normally when you go to a hypnosis show, that person's got their set list, kind of like when you do a magic show, you've got your set list and you know what you're going to do. That's not what this show is. Audience members, as they enter the venue, are going to be prompted, and they're going to be given notice of this ahead of time. It's all part of how the show is described, to give ideas for routines that they'd like to see in the show.
Oh, wow.
So about 5 minutes before the show starts, I'm going to pull those ideas. I'm going to go through. I'm going to take all of anything out of there that's not safe. Anybody writing down "FU, Judge Mentalist" or whatever they might decide to, silly stuff that inevitably people are going to write on there. And anything that's inappropriate, anything that's unsafe is obviously not going to happen. And real quick and on the fly, almost kind of sort of tiptoeing on improv, I'm going to write each and every show on the fly about 5 minutes before the show, and away we go.
Wow.
So each and every one of those shows that I do is going to be as unique as the audience that walks through that door that night. And, I wanted to make a journey out of this and be able to invite people to join me on this journey in a way that doesn't have them have to take a week off of whatever they're doing and hop on a plane and come to Spain. So I launched this Kickstarter to really kind of pull together this community of people that want to follow this journey, get behind the scenes access to things. There are levels in there relatively inexpensive that you can actually give a suggestion for a routine that I'll put in during these shows. There's another level where I will write a routine with you. So it's a little bit of cheating because I got a couple of people who have signed up for that. So there are going to be a few routines that go into these shows that have been pre-written, but they're going to be organically done through and for this festival. And there might be some completely random ones because they get thrown in there from those suggestions. And so that right now, everything related to this run of shows is at carnivalofdreams.com. So you can find out about the Kickstarter there. You can, when they are announced formally and tickets are available, which I think is going to be this week. If you are in Barcelona, you're going to see those show times and you're going to be able to get tickets there. I've also started doing, and actually the first one I did was about an hour ago, connecting with other performers who are going to be performing at this Fringe Festival and doing interviews like this to talk about their shows. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, because the Fringe Festival, for anybody who's not familiar, it's a multicultural, multidisciplinary type of event, and they happen all over the world. The concept started in Scotland. I think they run theirs for a month, maybe 5 weeks, and all sorts of different venues, all sorts of different performance types. And the one in Barcelona runs for a week, and it's no different. It's very comedy based because there's a very strong English speaking comedy culture and comedy community there, which is what this whole thing kind of was launched out of. So probably 50-60% of the performances at this year's Barcelona Festival are going to be some form of comedy, whether it's improv, whether it's stand-up, whether it's sort of a spoken word storytelling comedy type of thing. There's a handful of magicians. I'm doing these hypnosis shows. There are musicians and other sorts of theater, circus type of performers there. So it's usually in an isolated period of time, whether it's a week or a couple of weekends consecutively, or again a little over a month that Edinburgh does. They're pretty popular in Australia. They'll do them for like a month and a half to 2 months. So if you're interested in this type of thing, DC did one. DC did one this past year that I think conflicted with something else that I was doing, and that was the first time that they did it. So
Wow.
Wherever you are, wherever you're watching this, you should take a look and see if there's a Fringe Festival near you, because a lot of times people will take, kind of like what my show is, experimental concepts or things that they're working out that some of these might be works in progress. Some of these might be, refined, well-oiled shows, and really everywhere in between.
Wow. All right. So going to Barcelona, we usually go to Cancun every single year, and I know a handful of words, and I really have to stop and think about them before I spit them out because which one goes where.
Yeah.
But they have earpieces like for $30 now that automatically translate the language. Dude, go to Amazon. That's what I'm taking to Cancun next time because I'm tired of texting the maid and giving her my phone and texting her
Right.
and doing
Yeah.
Google Translate. So that I think that'll be awesome.
You mentioned that I've ordered a couple of them. They're hit and miss. So far, I've returned every one that I've gotten because they're okay. Um, I think that technology gets there. Look, I'm a big Star Trek nerd, so I would love to eclipse into a world that has that universal translator that they have, where it's somehow built in and you could talk to anybody at any time from any world in any language. That, you know, that might be if I were picking a superpower. Sometimes you get that question, hey, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? I think high on my list would be a universal translator, being able to communicate with folks regardless of where they are, regardless of what language they speak. That to me would be pretty valuable, pretty strong.
So what do they do wrong? Do they skip words or what?
They're circling back to the theme of this conversation. A lot of them are very AI driven.
So what is that?
They're choppy, they're hit and miss. They're really just a go-between for a Google Translate. Everyone that I have tested out so far, and I have bought ones that were $80. I have bought ones that were $400 and a bunch of different price points in between. And they all end up basically being Google Translate with a few extra bells and whistles. And those bells and whistles are not really that much of an improvement, at least not yet, and not with the ones that I've tried so far.
I think you need more than me. Google Translate would be a miracle for me. I know nothing, and I really want to connect with these people. Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
That technology, you can talk in your language into it, it'll translate, then you could press the button and you don't have to do the whole here, look at this. You could press the button and it'll say it out loud. And of course, you could play it while hit it to translate while the other person's speaking. Again, the ones that I've seen with or without the earphones are all linked up to an app like that, whoever's proprietary version of it, and it's kind of doing that same thing.
I thought it was automatically just doing it in your ear, and you don't have to have your phone out.
When that thing exists,
Okay.
sign me up. I will.
That's what it was. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now different.
That's what they advertise it to be. They're just not quite that good. Yes.
So when you're interviewing people for Barcelona, when you interviewed me, is that for your podcast? Is that just for your social media? What is that for?
When I'm doing them, so I do these in a number of ways. If I'm doing I speak at a lot of conferences on hypnosis. So when those get announced, I will reach out to other presenters. I use those to promote the whole thing. So I'm promoting their talk. I'm promoting the event, whether it is a conference, whether it is a fringe festival. I use it out there. And of course, it cross-pollinates, kind of like what we were talking about before. As people watch this on your feed, they're going to learn about me. As I share this and they watch it on my feed, they might be learning about you for the first time. And, the same for all of these performers. So to help in general elevate the awareness, the knowledge, there's still so many people out there that don't know what we do or anything about it.
Right.
And it's an amazing thing. It's for some people life-changing entertainment. And I just, the more people that know about this kind of stuff, I think the better. So that's really the primary goal of that. And with these fringe festivals, it's, a lot of people are very, very good at what they do and not necessarily the best at marketing themselves. So being able to be like, hey, look, and I don't, much like you, I don't charge anybody for these. There is no fee. This isn't like hey, give me $50 and I'll interview you and then we'll push it out there. No, none of that. We're going to do it. Similar platform to this. Here's the link. Do what you want with it. You want to put it into one of those little AI things that's going to chop it up into little reels? Do it. You want to just post it out there, send it to an email list, put it on your own YouTube channel? Do it. Whatever it is, because if it helps you and it helps me and it helps the festival or the conference or whatever we're doing, thumbs up all across the board. I thoroughly believe, and not just within our world of magic and mystery entertainment and whatnot, that there's so much opportunity in collaboration, and just there's really sorry if this offends some of the people that have this mindset, but the folks at the bottom that are fighting for scraps, that they can compete for whatever. They don't need to. Elevate yourself, elevate others, and it's just going to open up worlds for you.
I've seen it personally. People that keep everything close to the vest. They don't want to tell people where they're working. They don't want to say this. They don't want to say that. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to steal your job. I'm not going to go approach your residency wherever it is. But I've seen that happen too. So, but I think you get more out of the collaboration than you do keeping those secrets. Just let people know. So now I can advertise and tell my friends, hey, Judge Mentalist is performing at this place. He's a friend of mine. Let's go see him this weekend. Or
Absolutely.
you're going to be in that area, go see him. But some people don't want to tell other entertainers where they're even performing at.
Which is crazy.
That's, yeah.
I am not, outside of the interviews and stuff that I'm doing, I am constantly liking, sharing, spreading the word on other folks' performances, because I want that. Well, first of all, it also stems from knowing how difficult it is to four-wall and promote shows. So I want that place to succeed, because they may want somebody like me in the future. I'm not necessarily going to go seek them out. I'm not trying to steal somebody else's job or anything like that. But if a place, let's use Elkton Magic for an example, and let's change history and steer the ship in the other direction. Let's say it blows up through the help of others and collaboration, and the word just takes off, and it goes from being a once a month thing to being an every weekend thing. Well, guess what? Nobody stole anybody's job in making that happen. They just created 3 or 4 more every month.
Yep. Exactly.
100%.
And we live in this world where so many people are just tied to devices and tied to different streaming platforms, and it's it serves a purpose, but it's certainly not the healthiest thing. It's certainly not the most social thing. So encouraging people to get out of their house, and after everything that we went through in 2020 and beyond, to get out of what may have become their comfort zone and support live entertainment, whatever it is. I don't care if it's your show, my show, even somebody I don't like show. Go support live entertainment and have a good time. Keep this stuff going, because if you don't, it disappears.
Well, in talking to other entertainers and other magicians this weekend at the magicians conference I went to, everybody's saying numbers are down across the board everywhere. And it's like, what is going on? The resorts are slowing down. People just aren't taking vacations. I guess economy, I don't know. But getting them out of the house and doing this, you have to do even more work now. But I don't mind. I love it. I love it. I love doing what I do, man. So if I have to work a little harder, so be it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing magical things and sharing gifts with people that this stuff's not available to them every day, and it's really a special thing. It's I have a ton of, obviously you guys have a ton of fun doing it, and that's the primary thing. Sure, there's a business element to it. We're making money doing these shows, but like you I know this about you and other people that I network with. You've got this love affair with performing and entertaining others, and just, seeing their reactions to whatever it is that you're doing. And like with my shows and the folks that I have on stage, like each and every one of those people on stage is having a very, very unique and personal experience. I'm giving that whole group of people up there on stage the same suggestion at the same time, but what they're experiencing and what they're seeing, which is drawing from their imagination and drawing from their set of life experiences, it's such a different experience for each and every one of them. And the stories that people tell me after these shows about how did you take, that because I've done some shows where I've taken people not on a rocket ship and they've landed on a planet that no humans ever been on before, and they're out there and walking around and they're petting these weird different critters that they've never seen before, and they're touching and smelling different plants that are totally unique to that planet. And I know that each and every one of those people is having a totally different experience, because I'm not telling them what this stuff looks like, but their mind is just, racing and creating all of this imagery for them. And just the story, they're like, how did you take me there? Where did I go? Because those folks never left my stage. But in that moment, in that state, what they experienced was so vivid, so real to them. And just, a lot of hypnotists will end their show saying that you're going to forget everything that you experienced up here. Not me. No, I have created an experience for you that to me is a gift, and you are going to remember this. You are going to be excited and proud for everything that you experienced and everything that you did up here, because I truly, number one for me is safety and respect. I treat people like gold when they're on my stage, because if I don't, I won't be doing this for very long. And I thoroughly believe that whether it's what I'm doing or what you're doing, we're providing an amazing experience for these people. And I want to see it thrive. I want to see it grow. I love giving people the wonder that I once had when I was on the other side of this and didn't know what was happening. And just, I got to experience it. I've burst that bubble. We all have now, but there's still some things out there that I get to see and be wondered and amazed by. And it's an amazing feeling. And it's amazing to be able to share it with people.
So you said the safety and respect. That's awesome. That is your mantra, because that's the reason 90% of people don't want to volunteer for a show, because I'm going to make you have sex with the chair behind you, or I'm going to make you, do the funky chicken, with your top off,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, none of that in my shows.
Right.
Again, step one, for these particular shows that I'm doing in Spain, and if this thing takes off, I'm going to do this show all over the place. Is going to be people writing ideas down. Step two is me going through and cleaning them up. Nothing inappropriate, nothing that's going to have people doing, dangerous stuff. Nobody's going to fall off my stage. Nobody's getting hurt. And they're not going to do anything embarrassing or inappropriate. It's just not. There's so much fun that can be had on stage, and such an amazing experience without crossing any of those lines.
That's awesome.
There's folks that do adult shows in adult settings, and that's great, because in that situation, there's full disclosure top to bottom.
Right.
The people that are coming into that audience for that show know what they're coming there for. They've signed up for it, and sometimes they're hosting those types of shows in venues that are very, very adult themed. Maybe it's some alternative lifestyle situations. Fantastic, because everybody's kind of part of that contract. I don't do those shows.
I don't even know this, and I'm not a part of the hypnosis world, though. I don't hang out with hypnotists. I mean, I know some that are also magicians.
Yeah.
Why? That's why we're friends. If you were just a hypnosis, I wouldn't care about you. No, I'm only kind of kidding. Anyway, so I don't know that there is family hypnosis shows and adult hypnosis shows. I just thought it was all hypnosis. So do you say family friendly hypnosis, or you just go in there saying hypnosis, and then when they get there, you say, "These are my 2 guidelines"? That makes sense.
Usually, my shows are all ages, and that's usually pretty clear. I usually, So it depends on where I'm performing in the way that this is framed. I don't mix who I have on my stage. So if I'm doing a show for like a high school audience where I know that high schoolers are going to come up on stage, I only want the kids up on stage.
Huh.
If I'm
Okay.
doing an adult show, I only want the adults on stage. And I'll say you have to be 18 and over to come up here. There's no hard and fast rule. I know that I'm going to be safe. I know that I'm going to be appropriate. But when Johnny comes up on stage, I don't know what's going on in his head. So I don't want, a 17 year and 364-day individual that comes up on my stage is still a child. So
Right.
on the off chance, and of course, my inability to thoroughly vet anybody that walks through that door, no adult's going to sit beside a child up on my stage. If I were ever going to be in a situation where I had to bring both up, there are going to be two sets of chairs sitting side by side, and it's going to be kids on this side and adults on that side, because every element of it. When I learned to do this, I learned with the longest running stage hypnotist headliner out in Las Vegas, Kevin Lapine. We spent the bulk of the first 2 days of this training on safety and ethics. And it's really framed very much the way that I approach this, even down to little things about how and where chairs are placed on stage. And when inevitably a handful of people that come up on stage don't get where I need them to be and get sent back, how do those people get rearranged? How are those people placed on stage? Who's sitting beside who? These are things that aren't necessarily being verbalized during these shows, but they're very, very much going on in my head. And, when you watch those shows and people get sent back, when I rearrange people and some of those chairs disappear, there's always chairs that are empty on the end. That way, if somebody does kind of fall over, they're not falling onto the floor. There's that padded chair that's sitting beside them to kind of help catch them. And usually I'm right there and paying attention to everything that's going on, because sometimes, especially as the shows progress, some people can get deep, 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 and they just go out.
Wow.
And it's a fun journey, because there are different depth levels in hypnosis, and sometimes you just get to a point where you're just in this Zen mode, and I could say anything to you and absolutely nothing's going to happen. You are just whatever world you're in that world, and you are resetting yourself. And when it's time to wake up and emerge, you're there and with it. But in that moment, sometimes they are just having their own moment.
So for our Patreon extra, I want to tell you a story about safety and ethics and the first hypnosis show I ever saw. It is crazy. Also, tell me a couple other, I don't want you to reveal your bits in your show, but you talked about traveling to Mars or our planet you've never seen, meeting animals. Can you give me like one or two other ideas? Because just the premises of these are just, my imagination starts going.
Right.
It makes it funny. Are you able to get two more?
The cool thing about this is you could take people almost anywhere. There are popular routines where you can take a person and make them a celebrity of their choosing. Every so often because I modulate these shows. There is not a set list that I work off of. So I don't want to say that every show is a totally rewritten set list, but I'm pulling things in and taking things out, and I'm trying to figure out, hey, what kind of audience am I going to be in front of today? And this is what I'm doing my normal shows. The Carnival of Dreams shows, those are all going to be made up in the moment based on, the audience members and what they've put into the box, and a handful of folks from the Kickstarter that have given ideas that are going to get in the box as well. I could become a celebrity, and again, the people on stage in that moment, in that trance state, believe that you are that person, or that this guy over here is that person. I've had people that I did a show for the Rochester, New York Fringe Festival last year called the Court of the Mind. So it wasn't very, it kind of was playing off of that Judge Mentalist theme. It wasn't very like courtroom, but I had people transported into their dream car, and then they're driving, and they're, turning and hitting speed bumps, and there's a red light camera, so they kind of pose for it, and then they get pulled over, and then they've got to come up with these wacky, zany, different excuses to get out of the ticket. And then I have done things from that point where, we're gonna convince this judge to throw this thing away. And the judge is a really big fan of mimes. And the 7 of you or the 8 of you are now the world's greatest mimes. And when this music starts, you're gonna show this judge your amazing mime show. And then people take it in all sorts of different directions. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's moments like that. And if anybody goes to any of my social media, you're gonna see all sorts of different clips from all sorts of different shows over the years. You'll see different people on stage doing completely different things, all based on the same suggestion, because they're drawing off of their mind, their experience, what they think a mime does. Or sometimes a person will be the world's greatest Michael Jackson impersonator. They are so good that they, for the next 2 minutes, are Michael Jackson. And when the music starts, and again, this is all stemming out of different ways in which people that I have on stage are going to perform to get out of a speeding ticket or a red light camera or whatever it is. And again, there is a really fluid sense of kind of improv and taking things in different directions, and then having people, there's probably a few clips of people that are speaking in like an alien or a Martian language, and then another person that's there interpreting for them.
Oh my goodness.
The possibilities are truly endless. In 2 weeks, I am doing some shows at a pirate takeover festival in a town. So these shows are going to be entirely pirate themed. There are going to be people on boats. They're going to have talking parrots on their shoulder, and only they're going to be able to hear what the parrots say. And they're going to end up telling us what the parrots are saying. And some of the parrots are going to be rude, and some of them are going to be really nice. And we're going to learn a lot about what people think pirates are and what pirates do. And every single one of these shows is a fun adventure. And they're as exciting as the imagination of the folks that I have up on stage. And I don't pick these people. My show is 100% volunteer. I have a row of chairs on stage that is generally based on the expected size of the audience and of course the limitations of the physical stage. And I get to a certain point in the show after I've kind of explained, hey, this is what we're going to do and this is what we're not going to do. And see these chairs behind me? First come, first serve. When that music starts, be safe, get yourself up here, boom. And then those chairs, sometimes I have a 45-second audio track that cues people to come up on stage. And I'd say more than 50% of the time, I don't make it through that track of full time until those chairs are full.
That's crazy, man. I'm jealous because he just shows up with chairs.
Right. Yeah.
And puts on
Oh, you got a whole trailer full of stuff. I have a microphone that I prefer to use.
Yeah. Wow.
That's my load in.
Wow. All right. So before we wrap things up, what was your Jeff McBride story? How did you end up hooking up with them? Was that before or after you became a headliner for Matt Donnelly?
I want to say that I started with one of his master classes. They run, if somebody's not familiar with this and you really want to step up your game, and there's no, I'm not an affiliate. I don't get paid for saying this. He hasn't, this is not necessarily an advertisement, but Jeff McBride runs a magic mystery school out of his house in Las Vegas. And if you don't know who he is, there's very, very little, if anything at all, that man does not know about magic, mentalism, and that whole world. And he runs a week-long master class, which I think he only does once a year. And it's limited to maybe like 16 students. And it, it's for folks that want to be performing or who are performing and want to level things up. You've got an opportunity most of that class to bring some sort of work in progress and get ideas for it, get improvements for it, kind of flesh it out and improve it. And, this was when I think probably after I had done a couple of performances, and I fell in love with it. So I really wanted to step it up. And I remember going, I can say things here, right? I'm not going to give away.
It's magicians and non-magician listeners.
Okay.
I mean,
So I'll code to some extent here. The first time that I was there, and he bases these classes off of what is it that you want to get out of this week, and they will tailor that class and some of what they're teaching to that group of people that are in that room that week. And I remember saying to him, we were like, name one thing, because it starts with kind of a what are your goals? What's on your wish list? What do you want to get out of here? And then kind of sharing those. And of course, Larry and Jeff and whoever else is on the team that week are vigorously taking notes that first night. And they spend, the whole day with everybody. But then at night, processing all of this stuff to make sure that they're tailoring the course to people. I remember, again, being relatively early on, being like, I am looking for a one-person, no-tech or low-tech confabulation routine. And immediately, within seconds, he's like, you need this. And sure enough, that's what I wanted. It was bullseye, not the big bullseye, the little bullseye right there, dart in the middle. And I watched as other people were like, I would like to learn how to do this. You need to go talk to so-and-so, because he also a lot of times knows who he has in the room. So there were people that are like, I'd really like to get better at card manipulation or whatever. Well, with card manipulation, Jeff's the guy to talk to. But, there would be other things where it's like, hey, I want to know how this works. Well, that person, that is an anchor within their show. Go talk to that person. And sometimes that answer is within the room. So he does that. He does mentalism weekends. A lot of times, I think he does 2 of those a year. They're about 4 or 5 days, I think. And he has Ross Johnson, who is just an absolute legend. And he does a lot of work on his Q&A in there. So if you want work with Q&A, that's one of the places to go. Ross is an absolute master, not even just in the methodology of how he's getting the information, but in really how to frame answering these questions for people. I think sometime early next year, Larry is publishing a book with Ross about the Q&A stuff. But yeah, tons and tons of stuff. And that's really where, that's where the Judge Mentalist name came from, because they, Larry pulled me aside and was like, you need to lean into this, not run away from it. Bring it into what you're doing on stage. And I've had absolutely no regrets since then. It's for any performers that are, especially if you're getting started and you want to level up, it's a great way to do that. You're going to learn so much there and polish material that you have and come up with new ideas to do things that you've been hoping to do and just couldn't find that exact right way to do it. And they do such a good job of, hey, you've been doing this for 6 weeks and you've been doing this for 60 years, but we're doing this class that really applies to everybody that's in that room.
That's awesome, dude. All right, we are running out of time here. I want you to pitch your Kickstarter one more time and websites for everything, and let people know where to find you.
Cool. Well, let's start with me in general, judgementalist.com. Super simple. You can find out where any of my shows are. You can contact me about booking a show. If it's not your world, whether you're not a magician or you don't want to do fundraiser shows or otherwise, and you've got some high school that could raise some funds or a nonprofit, I mentioned earlier, I do that no risk pricing. So I'm happy to work with anybody. Their job is, of course, to sell the tickets, but I've got all sorts of stuff that I do to help them learn how to do that, because most of the time they've never done something like that before. Everything about the Fringe shows, including the way to get to the Kickstarter, which I think runs until October 1st or 2nd is the cutoff date on it. tiers on that are as little as $5. So one of the things that's super important to me is creating this kind of community and this private like WhatsApp group that I'm going to keep people updated on the journey, behind the scenes stuff, all sorts of photos. That entry into that is really where I would love to have a ton of people involved, because it's just a cool thing when you're going to go on an adventure like that, to be able to share it with other people that are interested in it, all the way up to being able to book me for a show and or suggest routines or get fun little stuff like the official, is that showing up? Yeah, the Carnival of Dreams kind of whoop hypnosis swirl coin. Fun stuff like that was created just for, you know, merchandise at the Fringe and as rewards for people who back the journey. I launched it last Thursday, and we hit the 100% funding mark in 19 minutes.
Whoa, that is
Wow.
awesome, dude.
Yeah.
So super cool. You know, it's a lot of work to launch a Kickstarter, and I talked to a bunch of people, magicians like Sean Farquhar, who's successfully done these in the past. He gave me a ton of incredibly valuable advice, including connecting me with who had these made. And I'm so excited about these because they're just a ton of fun. Yeah. So that's all at carnivalofdreams.com. So if you somehow happen to be seeing this and you're in Barcelona and want to go to one of those shows, tickets will be available there at some point in time. Whenever they become available, that site will get updated. If you want to learn about other performers, the list of all the interviews that I have done or will be doing are there. And yeah.
All right, everybody. That's Judge Mentalist.
Yeah.
Only thing we have left to say is see you next week.
Check us out online at wesiseli.com and patreon.com/Wes_Iseli for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled Wesiseli.